your conference here today. It's a great technique, actually, to get your first speaker to speak when the audience don't have anywhere to sit, which is a kind of great technique for ensuring that we keep it brief, which I will try to do. But actually, it's such a temptation with a large and distinguished audience to give you the full words. So, I mean, it's an opportunity, a great opportunity to reflect a bit on what we've done, and as you say, Julian, to reflect a bit on what needs still to be done and can be done. And we have a much better handle on all of this than we did 5 years ago when we started. Because actually Britain is leading the way in a lot of these areas in a way that might not have been expected 5 years ago. We're now recognised as the most transparent government in the world. We've come top of the rankings by several organisations and have done for a couple of years now. We have a world-leading programme to support social finance. We promoted a programme of public service mutuals, which is, again, trail-blazing in the world. We have an efficiency and reform programme that last year alone saved £14.3 billion compared with Labour's last year in office. Digital is another of those areas where Britain is now recognised to be world-leading. And it is, yes, all part of the government's long-term plan for a stronger economy. 5 years ago, the pressing need was to deliver savings so that we could reduce the deficit, and that meant an overhaul of the way in which government offered public services. In a very short space of time, we adopted, at the instigation of Martha Lane Fox, the mantra of digital by default. We set up a government digital service to deliver the changes. We started a programme of work that included shutting down over 300 government websites to be replaced by just one, gov.uk. Since then, the Obama administration in America has created a US digital service explicitly modelled on our own GDS, right down to using the Keep Calm and Carry On posters. The New Zealand government has taken the source code, because what we do is we're open source by default, source code for gov.uk and using it for their own website. The Australian government recently has set up their digital transformation office, again explicitly modelled on what we've done. My counterpart emailed me and said, Francis, if plagiarism is the sincerest form of flattery, you should feel very flattered. I did. And to cement our place as a leading digital government, we recently hosted in London representatives from the 5 most advanced digital governments in the world for the first annual D5 conference. Just the other countries in that were Estonia, you mentioned Estonia, Julian, Israel, New Zealand, and Korea, South Korea. North Korea's interest in digital is different. Seen recently. And I did actually, I just recounted how some years ago when I visited Estonia and I was asked the then Prime Minister, Mr. Ansip, now Vice President of the European Commission, how it was that Estonia became a leading digital government. And he said, well, when we became an independent country 20 years ago, we had 2 advantages. We had no legacy because the Russians had stripped the place bare, and we had no money. So we had to do things differently. So I said, well, we've created the second of those conditions. We do have quite a lot of legacy, which is what we've had to deal with, and we're still not out of that yet. We still have a huge legacy. And no longer do the words government and IT induce automatic nightmares with visions of unintelligible contracts and failed projects. That combination of words, British government IT projects, was a pretty catastrophic one 5 years ago. It isn't now. We have undergone a significant transition and achieved a lot so far, but we are only at the beginning of this. The rest of this conference, you're going to be focusing on 4 technologies that have the potential to revolutionise public service provision. Internet of Things, mobile internet, and I did an event yesterday on mobile where actually it's now just really clear that more and more people's primary access to the internet is going to be through mobile, not through fixed laptops and desktops. And interestingly, the two age groups who have the highest proportion of people whose only access to the internet is through mobile are the youngest and the oldest. So it's teenagers, understandably, but also over 65s, who find it much more, if you're not used to it, you find it much more intuitive and less intimidating, because it's not a computer. I mean, we all know that this is a computer, but actually it doesn't kind of feel like a computer. It is not scary in the same way. So mobile, data analytics, and the cloud, all of these technologies show, and we're good at all of this in this country. And let's never forget that. This is a strength for us as a country, and we need to invest in it. And all of these show potential for great innovation and growth in our country. And we will use whatever of these technologies makes sense for us to drive down costs and drive up efficiency. For too long, government IT meant interminable procurement processes to buy services and tech that were obsolete long before actually in many cases long before the contract was even started, let alone by the time it had run its course. And we created systems and structures that were incompatible, no interoperability between different silos, just everything wrong about the way it was being done. So some of the changes that we've made in the last 5 years to ensure that we only use the most effective and up-to-date technology. After the last election, the need to slash our costs, we needed to get to grips with how we procured and managed technology. Previously, we'd plowed ahead with far too little commercial awareness, so projects were consistently delivered late and over budget. Some of the big failures were really well known, the disastrous experience with the National Health Service's IT program. We relied far too much on a small pool of very large IT suppliers. Tech SMEs and digital startups were almost deliberately frozen out, requiring 3 years audited accounts, turnover thresholds, all of it almost kind of looked like it was deliberately cutting out the most innovative, the newest, the most dynamic providers, and that couldn't make sense. And when we said we wanted 25% of our spend across the whole of government to be with SMEs, people said, well, how's that compatible with value for money? As if it's somehow in conflict with it. The reverse is the case. Why would you want to exclude some of the most competitive suppliers and damage our industrial base, our supplier base in this country, but also actually remove some of the competitive tension on which we rely to get the best outcome? So we needed to change all of that, and far too much of what we did had lost sight of the needs of our citizens, of what people actually require from the public services. Services were too often designed around the convenience of the government and the bureaucrat, the way in which government happened to be configured, rather than the way in which the citizen needs to interact with the government. And we all but forgot about the taxpayers who foot the bill. So we set about building a more digital government underpinned by a strong commitment to competition. Last year I took a team of senior civil servants to Silicon Valley, and we saw for ourselves that you don't need to be big to succeed, you just need to be good. So we set out 4 red lines for IT that we're pretty militant about enforcing. First is we will no longer let ICT contracts, which have a lifetime value of over £100 million, unless there's a really exceptional reason to do so. Contracts should be smaller. Contracts should be shorter to ensure that we have the widest range of suppliers who can compete for them. Next rule, we won't give a contract for service provision to a company that's providing systems integration in the same part of government. We had far too many contracts that were opaque, where we couldn't see what we were getting, what we were paying for. We need to separate that out and have much more clarity. And we need to bring much more of the integration in-house. We had outsourced too much capability. We lost too much ability in-house to be an intelligent customer and actually manage multiple suppliers. So we outsourced in 2 big chunks for too long. So that was the second one. The third is that we won't extend existing contracts, again, unless there's a compelling case, and too often we do this, and we shouldn't, because actually it's rare to find a good reason, a really good reason, other than immediate necessity, generally because it's been left too late to extend the pricing and the technology of the past. And finally, We don't let hosting contracts for more than 2 years. The cost of hosting, you all know this, it halves roughly every 18 months. No one should sign up for hosting contracts that are well beyond that, and yet we have long-term hosting contracts as part of our legacy, which not only have no price reductions built in, but have price increases built in. This is not a good way to run our business. And so these rules should actually just be a backstop, because parts of government that are following good practice will meet these red lines anyway. And these rules alone, just last year, helped us save £91 million, and next year we expect even greater savings as these rules bed in and the old contracts begin to expire. So big or small, established or disruptive, if you're providing the right product at the right price, then we'll do business with you. We want a level playing field for all, biased only to those providing the best quality at the best price. We want to see a new world, a startup world, where what you can do now matters more than what you did in the past. A long-running government contract should not be a barrier to this. So the introduction of these 4 red lines is just one way in which we've changed the approach to how government buys and supports IT. In 2014, we launched the digital marketplace, helping those transform public services to make it simpler, clearer, and faster for them to buy what they need. Right now, that means anyone in the public sector can buy cloud-based services via the G-Cloud framework. But in future, it will also allow the public sector to get specialists in to help design and build those public services. This has helped to open up government contracts to a constellation of new suppliers of all sizes and in all places, who were previously almost deliberately, as I say, excluded from being able to bid for, let alone to win government contracts. Last week in Liverpool, I met a company called ScraperWiki, founded in Liverpool in 2009. We hired them to migrate website content as part of the transition to gov.uk. They're now supplying services to the UN. Their total government business has grown 200% in 12 months. With a team of just 8 people, ScraperWiki approved. You don't need to be big or to have an extensive history of delivery to do a great job. Total sales to date through the digital marketplace via the G-Cloud framework across the public sector have now reached over £467 million, with half of this going to SMEs. And it's no wonder that the UK government has been described as Europe's best startup. To match this, we're also modernising the way that government provides its services to the public, and our new operating model is evolving. We call it government as a platform. We're creating an environment where cross-government platforms are used by every department and every agency. These new common platforms cut across the structure of government, providing a common core infrastructure of digital services, technology, and business processes. By building common platforms for government will help departments focus on their core business without having to build every single component of a service from scratch. We've already started building platforms. Gov.uk is the first, the award-winning publishing platform. And it'll be the basis of how we'll work as one government in the digital age. We saw that if one department needed a service for publishing information on the web, so would other departments. So we built a platform they can all use and share, and indeed have to use and share. We're currently looking at a common payments platform. We think there'll be about 30 other platforms, such as appointment booking systems, status tracking, registering activities, issuing licenses. These are done in lots of different parts of government, and yet we build it fresh everywhere, expensively and inefficiently, without learning from what's done elsewhere. Government as a platform is all about creating common building blocks, which can be combined in various ways to build and adapt new services at speed, with a minimum of effort and expense. If one bit breaks, it can be replaced or upgraded simply, quickly, efficiently. These new digital and technology platforms are the foundations of our new civic infrastructure, a modern equivalent to London's Victoria sewer network or the building of the national grid. By opening up the secure interfaces, the APIs of our digital services will allow others to integrate their services with ours, so that you could, for example, buy your car tax at the same time as buying your car insurance. In the future, public services will need to be fully integrated with this platform in order to be viable. The era of bespoke solutions commissioned at extortionate costs by individual departments is definitively over. We're also publishing more and more government data online. On data.gov.uk, we've published 19,000 open data sets, including everything from live traffic information to statistics on childhood obesity. Individuals and companies can take this data and use it, providing add-on services to the public and eliminating the information advantage of the bureaucracy. Together, government as a platform and greater transparency and more open data will enable others to play a more active role in the delivery of public services in the same way that the open nature of Apple's iOS system harnesses the innovative potential of small app makers. We want government as a platform to offer the same opportunities to anyone with a bright idea for how to improve public services. So, before the last election, Whitehall was procuring systems before they'd even been designed, or over such a long period of time that the technology was out of date before it was delivered. Inevitably, many of these projects ran over time, or over budget, or in far too many cases, both. We sought to put a stop to that, and if we've enabled ourselves to take an agile, iterative approach to the way that we procure systems for government. Some things will always go wrong, there is no perfection here. But with this flexible approach, government can respond to the challenges rather than becoming trapped and imprisoned by them. My aim is that this will allow us in the future to make the most of innovation outside Whitehall, hopefully before it becomes obsolete. Over the last 5 years, we've focused on driving down costs in government while improving the standard of services to the public. Digitalisation has been the essential component of this. Last year resulted in savings of £210 million, but as part of the long-term economic plan, we've committed to saving another £10 billion from across government by 2018, and by 2020, 15 to £20 billion. Digital will continue to play a central role in this. We know that our work has only just started. Our continued ability to move quickly and to make the most of future advances like the ones you're discussing today will be the bellwether of whether we succeed or fail. I'm betting on success. Thank you.